The pine garland above my mother's front door smelled like every Christmas I'd ever spent pretending things were fine. Emmett pressed close to my side, his new sneakers squeaking on the wet porch steps, and I reached down and squeezed his hand once before I knocked. I knew before the door opened that something was already wrong. The kind of knowing you carry in your chest after 32 years with the same family. My mother answered in her hostess apron, the one she only brought out when she wanted to perform warmth rather than actually feel it. My brother was somewhere behind her. I could hear the TV, football on at 3 in the afternoon, volume too loud for conversation. The rest of the extended family had already arrived. I could see my uncle's coat on the rack and hear my cousin's kids running upstairs. "You're late," my mother said. "Not hello, not Merry Christmas, you're late." "Traffic on 26, I said. "Hey, Mom." She stepped aside to let us in without acknowledging Emmett. He noticed. Kids always notice. He just tucked himself closer to me and looked at the carpet. The dining room table was set for 11. I counted the plates automatically. It's a habit. I'm a financial analyst. I count things, and the number landed wrong. I walked us around to look again. 11 adults. No children sitting anywhere at the main table. My cousin's daughters were eating at the kitchen island, which had been covered with a plastic tablecloth and set up with paper plates. Fine. Kids' table. Normal. But my cousin's daughters were 7 and 5. Emmett was 9 and had been eating at adult tables since he was 4, because I raised him with the expectation that he was a person. I didn't say anything yet. I set our coats in the closet, poured Emmett a glass of apple juice from the fridge, and found him a spot at the kitchen island with the younger girls. "You can sit with me at the big table," I told him quietly. "Or here's fine, you tell me what you want." He looked at the paper plates and the younger girls who were already fighting over crayons. He said, "It's okay, Mom. That's what Emmett always says when something isn't." Dinner was called at 4. I carried dishes to the table, helped my aunt bring out the sides, did all the things I always do at my mother's house, because somewhere between childhood and adulthood, I became the one who makes things run. My brother sat at the table the entire time. He did not carry a single dish. When everyone was seated, I noticed Emmett had migrated from the kitchen island to the empty chair beside me at the main table. He'd brought his paper plate and set it down carefully, trying not to be noticed, trying to join. My mother came out of the kitchen, carrying the turkey platter. She set it at the head of the table, picked up the serving spoon, and then looked at Emmett. Her expression didn't shift. That's the part that still gets me. How still her face stayed. "This is the adult table," she said. The room went quiet. Emmett looked at her, then at me. "He's fine where he is," I said. "He's 9. The younger kids are in the kitchen. Those kids are 5 and 7. Emmett is 9. He eats with adults at home." "This is not your home." She said it the way you'd say something obvious to someone who wasn't listening. Flat. Final. Then she reached across the table, picked up Emmett's paper plate, his Christmas dinner, and walked it back to the kitchen. Just carried it right out of the room. Emmett sat in the empty chair with his hands in his lap. He didn't cry. I watched his throat move when he swallowed, and something inside me went very quiet and very certain all at once. My brother snorted. Not a cough, not an accident. A snort. His wife stared at her plate. My uncle cleared his throat and looked out the window. No one said a word. I pushed back my chair. "Emmett, get your coat." He got up immediately. That broke my heart more than anything else. How fast he moved, like he'd been waiting for permission to leave. I picked up my purse from the back of the chair. My mother had reappeared in the kitchen doorway, still holding the serving spoon, watching me. "Don't be dramatic," she said. I looked at her for a moment. Not long. Then I said, "Merry Christmas, Mom," and I walked Emmett to the front closet and we got our coats. The last thing I heard before the door closed behind us was my brother saying, "She'll get over it." Like I was the one who had done something wrong. The cold air outside hit sharp and clean and felt like a relief. I drove 4 minutes to the McDonald's on Burnside before I said anything. I ordered Emmett a Happy Meal and a McFlurry and parked in the lot so he could eat while the food was still hot. He unwrapped his cheeseburger with that particular 9-year-old silence. The kind that means he's thinking and doesn't want me to know. "Mom," he said finally. "Yeah. Is Grandma mean to everyone or just to us?" I thought about the honest answer. "Just to us," I said. "But that's not because of anything you did." He ate his fries one at a time. "Okay," he said. I watched him and thought about the paper plate and the serving spoon, and 32 years of that same expression on my mother's face, and I made a decision right there in the McDonald's parking lot on Christmas Day that I should have made a long time ago. We checked into the Marriott on Morrison. I used my points. I'd been accumulating them from a work travel account for 2 years, which felt suddenly like it had been preparation for exactly this. I got us a room with 2 beds and a city view, and ordered Emmett room service hot chocolate at 6 p.m. because he deserved something real after the paper plate situation. When he fell asleep at 8:30, I called Bea. She picked up on the second ring. "She took his plate," I said. A pause. She physically took his plate. Walked it back to the kitchen in front of the whole family. "I'm going to say something and you're not allowed to argue with me. B. You've been sending her $1,200 a month since March." She was right. March, when my mother called crying about being behind on her car payment and the electric bill, and I set up a recurring Zelle transfer without being asked twice, because that's what I do. That's what I have always done. "And your brother's car insurance," Bea continued. "He's still on your policy." "I know. How much does that run you?" $340 a month. So $1,540 a month to a household that just took a 9-year-old's Christmas dinner away because he sat at the wrong table. When she said it out loud like that, it sounded so simple, not even cruel, just arithmetic. "I need to think about this," I said. "You've been thinking about it for years," Bea said. "What you need to do tonight is cancel the December transfer." She was right. The Zelle payment was scheduled to go out on the 26th. I opened the app. $1,200, labeled December support, sitting in the queue like a question I'd already answered 100 times without thinking. I canceled it. My thumb didn't shake. That surprised me. "Done," I said. "Good, now open your insurance portal." Bea had worked in insurance claims for 6 years before she moved into operations, and she knew exactly which forms to pull. Removing a listed driver from an existing policy takes 24 hours to process, but the notification goes to the primary account holder instantly, me, and it also goes directly to the removed driver. My brother would wake up to an email on the 26th. I sent it through. "What about the lease?" Bea asked. "Right, the lease. 8 months ago, my brother had wanted to move into a nicer apartment, 2 bedrooms, better neighborhood, and his credit wasn't where it needed to be, so he'd asked me to co-sign. I'd said yes because he promised it was temporary, just to get through the application. He'd refinance me off within 6 months. He hadn't. I was still legally listed as co-signer on a lease for an apartment I had never once set foot inside. "I can put in a removal request with the property management," I said. "They won't process it mid-lease without both parties agreeing, but you can submit it in writing and it starts the clock." When the lease comes up for renewal in April, they'll require him to qualify on his own income. He won't qualify on his own. I know, Bea said. We sat with that for a moment. Anything else? She asked. There was one more thing. The $4,800 I'd transferred to my brother in September. Cash. Because he said he'd pay me back by November 1st, and I hadn't thought I needed documentation for family. I'd been wrong about that. Text him tonight, Bea said. Just the amount, the transfer date, the repayment date he gave you. Screenshot it before you send. He'll deny the terms. He'll deny them in writing or out loud. One of those is better for you. I drafted the text that night and saved it in my notes. Every number exact. Every date correct. I didn't send it yet. I'd let the insurance email land first. Let Christmas settle. But it was written. I put the phone down. The city was lit through the hotel window, the river reflecting downtown in slow ripples. Emmett was asleep on his side, one arm hanging off the mattress, his new sneakers set neatly at the foot of the bed, because that's something I taught him. You take your shoes off and you put them down neat. I turned off the lamp and didn't sleep for a while. The voicemail came at 8:14 the next morning. The Zelle didn't go through. Call me back. The electric is due by the 28th. Not Merry Christmas. Not I'm sorry about yesterday. The electric. I typed back a text, not a call, text. I've ended the recurring transfer. Merry Christmas. 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared. Appeared again. Her response took 4 minutes. What does that mean you ended it? I didn't answer. 20 minutes later my brother called, then again, then a text. What did you do to my insurance? I took Emmett down to the hotel breakfast. He had a waffle with too much syrup. I ate eggs. We didn't talk about any of it. They found the hotel at 10 in the morning on the 27th. I don't know exactly how. My best guess is that my cousin mentioned the Marriott on Morrison in a group chat at some point, or my mother called around. However she managed it, the front desk rang up to the room. A woman and a man are asking for your room number at the lobby desk. I haven't given it to them. Would you like me to call security? Please, I said. Emmett looked up from the cartoon he was watching. I held up one finger, just a minute, and stepped into the bathroom and waited. Security handled it, not long, maybe 10 minutes. When I checked my phone, I had 3 missed calls from my brother and a string of texts from my mother. This is childish. Then call me right now then. We drove 40 minutes. I typed back once. Don't come to where I'm staying. That's the only warning I'll give. She didn't respond. We checked out at noon and drove home. Emmett asked if he could put on the Christmas playlist I'd made, the one with all the Nat King Cole songs, and I said yes, and he hit repeat on the Christmas song 3 times in a row because that's his favorite, and he doesn't see any reason not to just listen to your favorite thing on a loop. I let him. My aunt, my father's sister, the one who'd stayed close after the divorce, who always sent Emmett a birthday card with a 20 folded inside, texted me on the 29th. I watched what happened. I should have said something at the table. I'm sorry that I didn't. I stared at it. Then, I also heard what your brother said after you left. Do you want to know? I typed back yes. He said she always caves, just wait. He said it to your mother like it was a done thing, like you were guaranteed. She sent it because she thought I should know. I think she also sent it because she needed to, because she'd watched and stayed quiet, and that had cost her something too. I saved the screenshot. The certified demand letter for the $4,800 went out on January 3rd, drafted with help from a paralegal Bea knew from her previous firm. It referenced the exact transfer date, the exact amount, the verbal repayment deadline he'd already missed. It gave him 30 days to respond. He called me 17 times in one afternoon. I answered on the 17th. "You're suing me," he said, "not a question. I'm requesting the money you borrowed." It was a gift. I have the Venmo note that says loan, back by Nav1. That's not a gift. Silence. "Mom needs the December support," he said finally, like she was a third player in a negotiation between two people, like that was a valid argument. "Mom needs a lot of things," I said. "So does Emmett. He's a kid. He doesn't need anything." Something settled in my chest. Not anger, something flatter and cleaner than anger. "We're done here," I said. "You can't just." "Happy New Year," I said, and I hung up. The cosigner removal request was formally submitted to the Property Management Office on January 8th. They sent my brother a letter in February informing him that at lease renewal a new independent credit evaluation would be required. He did not meet the income-to-rent threshold on his own. He needed a new cosigner or a new apartment. He didn't find a new cosigner. I know because my aunt mentioned in March, very casually, that my brother was moving, something smaller on the east side, a studio. He'd been stressed. She didn't offer an opinion either way. She just told me. I was packing Emmett's lunch at the time, cutting his carrots diagonal the way he likes instead of coins, and I just said, "Okay," and kept cutting. My mother called once in February, not to apologize, to ask if I was coming for Easter. I thought about what to say for about 30 seconds. "No," I told her. "You're going to cut off your whole family over one dinner?" "I'm going to protect my son." Same thing I should have done sooner. She made a sound, somewhere between a sigh and a dismissal. "You're making this bigger than it is." "You took his plate, Mom. He was 9 years old. He sat down at the table and you picked up his plate and walked it out of the room in front of everyone there." Silence. "I'm his mother," I said. "That's the thing you keep forgetting. Whatever else I am to you, I'm his mother first." She hung up. I sat with the phone in my hand and felt something I hadn't expected. Not relief, not sadness, just the quiet after a long noise stops. My aunt came over in April with a potted succulent for Emmett. She knew he'd been asking for a plant because I'd mentioned it once, offhand, months ago. He named it Gerald immediately and put it on his windowsill and started watering it with a medicine dropper. Because he'd read online that you shouldn't overwater succulents, and he took that seriously. She sat at my kitchen table and drank the coffee I made her, and after a while she said, "You look lighter." "I feel it," I said. "Your mother is struggling," she said, not guilting me, not asking me to fix it, just telling me a fact the way she always does. "I know," I said. "I've thought about it a lot." I refilled my mug. "I'm not the solution to her problems. I spent 32 years believing I was, and I wasn't. I just delayed things. There's a difference." She looked at me over the rim of her mug, and something shifted in her face, something like approval, or maybe just relief. "Your father would have liked who you're becoming," she said. I didn't say anything back. I just looked out the window to where Emmett was in the backyard, trying to teach the neighbor's dog to sit. The dog was not learning to sit. Emmett had given up on the lesson and was just letting it lick his face. He was laughing the way he laughs when he forgets to manage it, open and loud and completely unguarded. A credit monitoring alert came in May. New inquiry on my file. I pulled the full report. A rental application. My brother had listed me as a financial reference without asking, and the property management company had run a soft pull on my credit to verify the information. I called the property management company, explained I had not authorized my information to be used, and requested a written record of the contact. They apologized and noted the file. Then I called the fraud line at my credit bureau and opened a formal inquiry. It didn't become anything serious. He hadn't forged documents, just put my name on a reference line without permission, but the inquiry went on record, and he knew it did because the bureau sends a notice. Bea texted when I told her. At what point does he actually learn? I thought about it. Then I typed back, when it stops working, not before. Emmett asked me in June why we hadn't been back to his grandmother's house since Christmas. I'd been thinking about how to answer this for 6 months. Not lying to him, but not loading him down with more than a 9-year-old should carry. Because she wasn't kind to you, I said, and I'm not going to take you somewhere you're not treated with kindness. He thought about that. He was making a peanut butter sandwich and very focused on getting the coverage even to every edge. Does that mean she doesn't love me? I think she loves the idea of family, I said carefully. She just doesn't always know how to make the people in her family feel it. He pressed the 2 pieces of bread together and considered the result. That's sad, he said. Yeah, I said, it kind of is. He was quiet for a second, then, can I still send her a birthday card though? I looked at him, this person I'd been building a life around for 9 years, who'd had his Christmas plate taken away in front of an entire room of adults and come out the other side, asking if he could still send a card. Yeah, baby, I said, you can always send her a card. The Marriott points I'd cashed in for that Christmas night turned out to be enough for a full weekend at a resort on the Oregon coast that summer. 2 nights, ocean view. Emmett woke up both mornings and stood at the window, describing the waves to me like a sportscaster calling a game he couldn't quite believe he was watching. We ate at the hotel restaurant both nights, real meals at a properly set table, cloth napkins, the whole thing, no paper plates anywhere. On the second night, after the dishes were cleared, Emmett rested his chin in his hand and looked at the table and then at me with that particular 9-year-old seriousness that still catches me off guard sometimes. Mom, he said, this is how dinner is supposed to feel. He was exactly right. I left a 20 on top of the service charge, which was probably excessive, but I was in the kind of mood where excessive felt like the correct amount. On the drive home through the Coast Range, Emmett fell asleep in the passenger seat, with his window cracked 2 inches, which he always does, because he likes the sound of the wind but hates the cold directly on his face. I drove through the dark with the heater on low and thought about what I would say if anyone ever asked me when things changed. The answer is a paper plate, a serving spoon, a room full of people who watched and said nothing. You don't always get a dramatic turning point. Sometimes you just finally see clearly what you've been looking at your whole life, and you decide you're not going to stand in front of it anymore. I reached over and turned the heat up 1 click for Emmett and kept driving. Some exits you only take once, and that's enough.